Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to this quiet space, a place where minds slow down and hearts rest. Before we begin this gentle, sleepy journey, just a small moment of support. If this meditation brings you calm, comfort, or clarity, please subscribe to the channel, gently tap the like button, and leave a comment to let us know you are here. Your support helps us continue creating these peaceful spaces for your mind, for your heart. Now, there is nothing else you need to do, nothing to think about. Let's begin. Close your eyes now and slowly settle into a comfortable position. Take a gentle breath in and slowly breathe out. Let your shoulders relax, let your jaw loosen, and allow your whole body to feel heavy. Science is a method of observation, measurement, and testing that allows us to describe patterns in the natural world. And when scientists say that something is not yet fully explained, they are not suggesting that the phenomenon is mysterious or beyond understanding, but rather that the current measurements, models, and theoretical frameworks have not yet provided a complete description of all the observable details associated with that phenomenon. This distinction is important to understand because it reflects not a fundamental limitation of knowledge itself, but rather the practical and technical boundaries that exist at any given moment in the history of scientific investigation. When a scientist states that a particular process or structure or force is not fully explained, what they typically mean is that the existing data sets are incomplete, or that the mathematical models used to describe the phenomenon do not yet account for all observed behaviors with sufficient precision, or that the underlying mechanisms have not been isolated and measured in all necessary conditions. This is a routine part of scientific progress, and it does not indicate that the phenomenon is unknowable or that it exists outside the realm of natural processes that can be studied through observation and experimentation. The difference between something being unknown, partially known, or unmeasurable is also a matter of practical scientific consideration rather than a philosophical or metaphysical distinction. A phenomenon is considered unknown when scientists have not yet gathered sufficient observational data, or when the tools required to measure it have not yet been developed or applied. A phenomenon is partially known when some aspects of it have been measured and described with reasonable accuracy, but other aspects remain incompletely characterized, or when the relationships between different variables are not yet fully understood. A phenomenon is considered unmeasurable when the current technological capabilities or the fundamental constraints of observation prevent direct measurement, although in many cases, scientists can still infer properties or behaviors through indirect methods, such as measuring the effects that the unmeasurable phenomenon has on other measurable quantities. These categories are not fixed or permanent, and as scientific methods improve, and as new instruments are developed, phenomena that were once unmeasurable may become measurable, and phenomena that were once unknown may become partially known, or even well understood. The limits of scientific knowledge represent a practical boundary that shifts over time as new data are collected, as new theories are tested, and as new technologies enable observations that were previously impossible. These limits are not dramatic or mysterious, but rather reflect the current state of human capability in terms of measurement precision, computational power, theoretical development, and technological innovation. At any given moment in history, there are questions that scientists cannot answer with certainty, not because the answers are fundamentally unknowable, but because the necessary measurements have not yet been made, or because the theoretical framework required to interpret those measurements has not yet been developed, or because the phenomena occur at scales or in conditions that are difficult or impossible to replicate in controlled settings. Understanding these limits as practical rather than absolute helps to clarify the nature of scientific inquiry, which proceeds gradually and methodically, building on previous observations and refining explanations as more information becomes available. There are certain physical constants in nature, such as the speed of light in a vacuum, the gravitational constant, the charge of the electron, and the mass of fundamental particles that have been measured with great precision and that appear consistently across all observations, but for which there is not yet a complete theoretical explanation of why these constants have the specific values that they do, rather than some other values. Scientists can measure these constants and incorporate them into equations that accurately describe physical processes, but the question of why these particular values exist remains an area of ongoing investigation. This does not mean that the constants are arbitrary or that they lack a physical basis, but rather that the deeper theoretical framework that might explain the origin or necessity of these specific values has not yet been fully developed or confirmed through observation. Some theoretical approaches, such as certain models in cosmology or particle physics, suggest possible mechanisms or principles that could account for the values of physical constants, but these remain areas of active research where measurements and models continue to be refined. Dark matter is an example of a phenomenon that has been measured indirectly through its gravitational effects on visible matter, but which has not yet been directly identified in terms of its composition or particle structure. Scientists observe that galaxies rotate in ways that cannot be explained by the gravitational influence of visible matter alone, and that the distribution and motion of galaxy clusters also require the presence of additional mass that does not emit or absorb light in the observable electromagnetic spectrum. By carefully measuring the motion of stars and galaxies, and by analyzing the bending of light from distant sources as it passes through regions of space, scientists have determined that approximately 85% of the matter in the universe does not interact with electromagnetic radiation in the way that ordinary matter does. This matter is referred to as dark matter because it does not emit, reflect, or absorb light, but the term dark simply describes this observational characteristic rather than implying anything mysterious or unknown about the nature of the phenomenon itself. Scientists have proposed various candidate particles that could account for dark matter, and experiments are underway to detect these particles directly or to measure their properties through other means. But as of the current state of research, the specific identity of dark matter has not been confirmed through direct observation. Dark energy is another phenomenon that scientists describe through mathematical models based on observational data rather than through direct measurement or identification of a specific substance or field. Observations of distant supernovae, along with measurements of the cosmic microwave background radiation and the large-scale structure of the universe, indicate that the expansion of the universe is accelerating rather than slowing down, as would be expected if only matter and radiation were present. To account for this acceleration, scientists have introduced a term into the equations of cosmology that represents a form of energy density that is distributed uniformly throughout space and that exerts a repulsive gravitational effect. This term is often referred to as dark energy, and it appears to constitute approximately 68% of the total energy content of the universe. The mathematical description of dark energy fits the observational data quite well, but the physical nature of this energy, whether it represents a fundamental property of space itself or some other phenomenon, has not yet been determined through direct observation or through a complete theoretical framework. Scientists continue to refine measurements and develop models that might explain the origin and behavior of dark energy, but the current understanding is based primarily on the consistent patterns observed in cosmological data rather than on a detailed, mechanistic explanation. The origin of consciousness is a topic that scientists approach through the study of neural structures, brain activity, and the relationship between physical processes in the nervous system and the subjective experience of awareness, perception, and thought. Consciousness can be defined in a limited scientific sense as the state of being aware of and responsive to one's surroundings, and it involves complex patterns of neural activity that can be measured using various techniques such as electroencephalography, functional magnetic resonance imaging, and other methods that track brain function. Scientists have identified certain brain regions and neural networks that are associated with different aspects of conscious experience, such as sensory perception, attention, memory, and decision-making, and they have observed that damage to specific areas of the brain can alter or eliminate particular aspects of conscious awareness. However, the precise mechanisms by which neural activity gives rise to subjective experience and the question of how physical processes in the brain produce the qualitative aspects of perception and thought remain areas of active investigation. This is not a question of whether consciousness has a physical basis, as the evidence strongly supports the view that conscious states are closely linked to brain activity but rather a question of how the details of neural processing translate into the specific characteristics of conscious experience. Scientists continue to study the brain at various levels of organization, from individual neurons to large-scale networks, in order to develop more complete models of how consciousness arises from physical processes. The brain is an extremely complex organ composed of approximately 86 billion neurons, each of which can form thousands of connections with other neurons, creating a network of incomprehensible intricacy that processes information, regulates bodily functions, and generates behavior and thought. While scientists have made substantial progress in understanding the structure and function of the brain at many levels, from the molecular mechanisms of neurotransmitter release to the patterns of activity in large-scale brain networks, there is still much that is not fully understood about how all of these components work together to produce the full range of human cognition and behavior. The difficulty in achieving a complete understanding of the brain arises in part from the sheer complexity of the system, with billions of individual components interacting in highly dynamic ways, and in part from the challenges of measuring brain activity at all relevant scales simultaneously. Scientists can measure the electrical activity of individual neurons, or they can measure the overall activity of large brain regions, but connecting these different scales of observation and building a unified model that explains how all levels of brain function contribute to specific cognitive processes is a task that requires extensive data collection and theoretical development. The brain is not incomprehensible in principle, but the practical challenges of mapping and modeling such a complex system mean that many aspects of brain function are still being investigated and refined through ongoing research. The nature of time is something that scientists measure and describe through the observation of change and the sequencing of events, rather than something that is interpreted in philosophical or metaphysical terms. In physics, time is treated as a dimension that, together with the three spatial dimensions, forms the framework within which physical processes occur. The measurement of time involves the comparison of periodic processes, such as the oscillation of atoms in atomic clocks, which provide a consistent and precise standard for defining units of time. Einstein's theory of relativity demonstrated that time is not absolute, but rather depends on the relative motion of observers and on the strength of gravitational fields, such that time can pass at different rates in different conditions. This understanding of time as a relative rather than absolute quantity has been confirmed through numerous experiments and observations, and it is incorporated into the models that scientists use to describe everything from the motion of satellites to the behavior of particles in accelerators. However, the question of why time has the properties that it does, and why there appears to be a directional flow of time from past to future are questions that scientists continue to investigate through the study of thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, and cosmology. The arrow of time, which describes the observation that certain processes occur in one direction but not the reverse, is related to the increase of entropy in closed systems, as described by the second law of thermodynamics, but a complete theoretical explanation of time that unifies all aspects of its behavior in different physical contexts remains an area of ongoing research. Gravity is one of the 4 fundamental forces of nature, and it is described with great accuracy by Einstein's general theory of relativity, which treats gravity as the curvature of spacetime caused by the presence of mass and energy. General relativity has been tested extensively through observations of planetary orbits, the bending of light by massive objects, the detection of gravitational waves, and many other phenomena, and it provides a highly successful framework for understanding gravity at the scales of planets, stars, galaxies, and the universe as a whole. However, gravity has not yet been successfully unified with the other 3 fundamental forces, which are the electromagnetic force, the weak nuclear force, and the strong nuclear force. These other forces are described by quantum field theories that treat forces as arising from the exchange of particles, and they are incorporated into a framework known as the Standard Model of Particle Physics. Attempts to develop a quantum theory of gravity, which would describe gravitational interactions at the scale of individual particles, and which would be compatible with the principles of quantum mechanics, have been ongoing for many decades, but a complete and experimentally confirmed theory of quantum gravity has not yet been achieved. This does not mean that gravity is fundamentally different from the other forces, but rather that the mathematical and conceptual challenges involved in unifying gravity with quantum mechanics are substantial, and that the conditions under which quantum gravitational effects would be significant, such as near the center of black holes or in the earliest moments of the universe, are difficult to observe directly or to replicate experimentally. The origin of the universe is described by the Big Bang Theory, which is based on extensive observational evidence, including the expansion of the universe, the cosmic microwave background radiation, and the relative abundances of light elements. According to this model, the universe began in an extremely hot and dense state approximately 13.8 billion years ago, and it has been expanding and cooling ever since. The Big Bang Theory provides a framework for understanding the large-scale structure and evolution of the universe, and it is supported by a wide range of measurements and observations. However, the theory does not provide a complete explanation of what, if anything, existed before the Big Bang, or of what caused the initial conditions that led to the expansion. Some models in cosmology propose mechanisms such as inflation, which is a brief period of extremely rapid expansion that could have occurred in the very early universe, and that could explain certain observed properties, such as the uniformity of the cosmic microwave background radiation. Other models explore the possibility of a cyclic universe or a multiverse, in which our universe is one of many, or in which the Big Bang was preceded by a previous phase of contraction. These models are speculative in the sense that they extend beyond the current limits of direct observation, and they remain areas of active theoretical research where scientists are working to develop predictions that could be tested through future observations. The Big Bang Theory itself is well supported by data, but the question of the ultimate origin or cause of the universe, if such a question can be meaningfully addressed through science, remains at the frontier of cosmological research. The origin of life on Earth is a question that scientists approach through the study of chemistry, geology, and biology, examining how simple organic molecules could have formed and assembled into more complex structures that eventually gave rise to the first self-replicating systems. The early Earth, approximately 4 billion years ago, had conditions that included liquid water, a variety of chemical compounds, and energy sources such as sunlight, volcanic activity, and lightning, all of which could have contributed to the formation of organic molecules. Scientists have demonstrated in laboratory experiments that amino acids, nucleotides, and other building blocks of life can form under conditions that are thought to resemble those of the early Earth, and they have proposed various scenarios for how these molecules could have organized into structures capable of metabolism and replication. One hypothesis, known as the RNA world hypothesis, suggests that early life was based on ribonucleic acid, which can both store genetic information and catalyze chemical reactions, before the later evolution of deoxyribonucleic acid and proteins. Other hypotheses focus on the role of mineral surfaces, hydrothermal vents, or other environments that could have provided the necessary conditions for the concentration and organization of organic molecules. However, a complete step-by-step chemical explanation of how life began, with all the intermediate stages identified and demonstrated experimentally, has not yet been achieved. This is not because life is inherently mysterious, or because it requires something beyond natural processes, but rather because the specific sequence of events that occurred billions of years ago is difficult to reconstruct with certainty, and because the transition from non-living chemistry to living systems involves many complex steps that scientists are still working to understand and replicate. Complex systems, such as ecosystems, weather patterns, economies, and even certain aspects of neural activity, are characterized by the interactions of many components that can produce behaviors and patterns that are difficult to predict in detail. The difficulty in understanding and predicting complex systems arises from several factors, including the large number of interacting variables the nonlinear relationships between those variables, and the sensitivity of the system to small changes in initial conditions. In some complex systems, small variations in starting conditions can lead to large differences in outcomes, a property known as sensitivity to initial conditions, which is sometimes referred to as the butterfly effect. This sensitivity means that even if the underlying rules governing the system are well understood, making precise long-term predictions may be practically impossible because it would require knowing the initial state of the system with infinite precision. Scientists study complex systems using a variety of methods, including computer simulations, statistical analysis, and the development of simplified models that capture the essential features of the system without including every detail. While these methods can provide useful insights and can often make short-term or probabilistic predictions, a complete deterministic understanding of all the details of a complex system's behavior is often not achievable in practice. This is a limitation of prediction rather than a limitation of explanation, and it reflects the practical challenges of dealing with systems that have many interacting parts rather than a fundamental barrier to scientific understanding. Predicting certain natural behaviors, such as the exact timing and location of earthquakes, the specific path of individual weather systems beyond a few days, or the long-term behavior of turbulent fluids, remains difficult despite extensive scientific knowledge of the underlying physical processes. In the case of earthquakes, scientists understand that they are caused by the sudden release of stress that has built up along faults in the Earth's crust, and they can measure the accumulation of stress and identify regions where earthquakes are likely to occur. But predicting the exact moment when a particular fault will rupture is not currently possible because the behavior of rock under stress is influenced by many small-scale factors that are difficult to measure and model in detail. Similarly, weather prediction is based on well-established physical principles governing the motion of air masses, the transfer of heat and moisture, and the rotation of the Earth, and modern weather models can provide useful forecasts for several days in advance. But the chaotic nature of atmospheric dynamics means that small errors in initial conditions or in the representation of physical processes can grow over time, limiting the accuracy of forecasts beyond a certain time horizon. These limitations are not due to a lack of understanding of the basic physics, but rather to the practical challenges of measuring all relevant variables with sufficient precision and of computing the behavior of systems with many interacting components. As measurement techniques improve and as computational power increases, the accuracy and range of predictions may improve, but some degree of uncertainty is inherent in systems that exhibit chaotic or highly complex behavior. The role of technology in defining what science can observe is fundamental to the process of scientific investigation, as the ability to measure and observe phenomena depends on the availability of instruments and techniques that can detect and quantify the relevant properties. The development of new technologies has repeatedly expanded the scope of scientific knowledge by allowing observations that were previously impossible. The invention of the telescope allowed astronomers to observe distant celestial objects and to discover moons, planets, and galaxies that were not visible to the naked eye. The invention of the microscope allowed biologists to observe cells and microorganisms and to understand the structure and function of living tissues at scales that were previously inaccessible. More recently, technologies such as particle accelerators, radio telescopes, electron microscopes, and space-based observatories have enabled scientists to study phenomena ranging from the behavior of subatomic particles to the structure of the universe on the largest scales. In many cases, the questions that scientists can meaningfully ask and the phenomena that they can investigate are limited by the capabilities of the available technology, and advances in technology often lead to new discoveries and to the refinement of existing theories. This does not mean that unobserved phenomena do not exist or that they are beyond the reach of science, but rather that the process of scientific investigation is an ongoing one that depends on the continuous development of new tools and methods for observation and measurement. Unanswered questions in science do not imply mystery or wonder in a philosophical or metaphysical sense, but rather represent areas where the current state of knowledge is incomplete and where further investigation is needed. The fact that scientists do not yet have complete explanations for certain phenomena is a routine and expected part of the scientific process, and it does not suggest that those phenomena are fundamentally different from other aspects of the natural world that are better understood. Science proceeds by identifying patterns, proposing explanations, testing those explanations through observation and experiment, and refining or replacing them as new data become available. At any given time, there are many questions that remain unanswered, either because the necessary data have not yet been collected, or because the theoretical frameworks needed to interpret the data have not yet been developed, or because the phenomena occur under conditions that are difficult to study. These unanswered questions are targets for future research, and they motivate the development of new technologies, new experimental methods, and new theoretical approaches. The existence of unanswered questions does not indicate a limit to what can be known through science, but rather reflects the fact that scientific knowledge is always expanding, and that there are always new areas to explore and new details to uncover. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to this quiet space, a place where minds slow down and hearts rest. Before we begin this gentle, sleepy journey, just a small moment of support. If this meditation brings you calm, comfort, or clarity, please subscribe to the channel, gently tap the like button, and leave a comment to let us know you are here. Your support helps us continue creating these peaceful spaces for your mind, for your heart. Now, there is nothing else you need to do, nothing to think about. Let's begin. Close your eyes now and slowly settle into a comfortable position. Take a gentle breath in and slowly breathe out. Let your shoulders relax, let your jaw loosen, and allow your whole body to feel heavy. The gradual acceptance that some explanations take time, measurement, and refinement is an important aspect of the scientific process, and it reflects the fact that building a complete and accurate understanding of natural phenomena is a cumulative endeavor that often requires the work of many researchers over many years, or even many decades. Some scientific questions are answered relatively quickly either because the necessary observations are straightforward to make, or because the phenomena are simple enough that a clear explanation can be developed based on existing knowledge. Other questions require extensive data collection, the development of new theoretical frameworks, and the testing of multiple competing hypotheses before a consensus explanation emerges. In some cases, early explanations turn out to be incomplete or incorrect, and they must be revised or replaced as new evidence becomes available. This process of gradual refinement is not a flaw in the scientific method, but rather a feature of it, as science is designed to be self-correcting and to converge on more accurate descriptions of the natural world as more information is gathered. The fact that some questions remain unanswered for extended periods does not mean that they are unanswerable, but rather that they are difficult and that they require sustained effort and the development of new capabilities in order to be addressed fully. The measurement of physical constants and the observation of their consistency across different contexts is one of the fundamental aspects of scientific practice, and it provides the basis for making predictions and for testing theories. Physical constants, such as the speed of light, the Planck constant, and the gravitational constant, appear to have the same values in all observed conditions, whether measured on Earth, in other parts of the solar system, or in distant galaxies. This consistency suggests that the laws of physics are the same throughout the observable universe, at least within the range of conditions that have been studied. However, the question of why these constants have the specific values that they do rather than different values is not answered by the simple observation that they are constant. Some theoretical models suggest that the values of physical constants might be related to the fundamental structure of the universe or to conditions present at the time of the Big Bang, while other models explore the possibility that different regions of a larger multiverse might have different values of these constants, and that we observe the particular values we do because they are compatible with the existence of stable structures and complex chemistry. These ideas remain speculative and are subject to ongoing theoretical and observational investigation, but they represent attempts to understand the deeper principles that might determine the values of physical constants rather than simply accepting those values as given. The study of dark matter through gravitational effects is an example of how scientists can infer the properties of phenomena that are not directly observable by measuring their influence on things that are observable. The motion of stars within galaxies, the distribution of galaxies within clusters, and the patterns of gravitational lensing all provide evidence for the presence of mass that does not emit or absorb electromagnetic radiation. By analyzing these observations in detail, scientists can estimate the total amount of dark matter and can constrain its properties, such as whether it interacts with ordinary matter through forces other than gravity, and whether it consists of particles with specific masses or other characteristics. Various experiments have been designed to detect dark matter particles directly, either by looking for rare interactions between dark matter particles and ordinary matter in highly sensitive detectors, or by searching for signals that might be produced when dark matter particles collide and annihilate. So far, these experiments have not produced a confirmed detection of dark matter particles, but they have placed limits on the properties that dark matter can have, and they continue to refine the search by improving detector sensitivity and by exploring different mass ranges and interaction types. The lack of a direct detection so far does not mean that dark matter does not exist, as the gravitational evidence for its presence is very strong, but rather that the properties of dark matter particles are such that they have not yet been observed through these experimental methods. The mathematical description of dark energy as a component of the universe's energy budget is based on observations of the expansion rate of the universe over time, and it has been incorporated into the standard model of cosmology known as the lambda CDM model, where lambda represents the cosmological constant, a term that can account for the accelerating expansion. The cosmological constant was originally introduced by Einstein as a way to allow for a static universe, but it was later abandoned when observations showed that the universe is expanding. The discovery in the late 1990s that the expansion of the universe is accelerating rather than slowing down led to the reintroduction of a cosmological constant or something similar to explain this acceleration. The cosmological constant can be interpreted as a form of energy density that is uniform throughout space and that does not change as the universe expands, and it exerts a repulsive gravitational effect that causes the expansion to accelerate. However, The physical nature of this energy, whether it is a property of empty space itself, or whether it arises from some other phenomenon, is not yet understood. Some theoretical models propose that dark energy might be a dynamic field that changes over time rather than a constant, and these models are sometimes referred to as quintessence or other names, but distinguishing between a cosmological constant and a dynamic field requires very precise measurements of how the expansion rate changes over time, and current observations are consistent with a cosmological constant, but do not rule out other possibilities. Scientists continue to make more precise measurements of the universe's expansion history and to develop new theoretical models in order to better understand the nature of dark energy. The study of consciousness through neuroscience involves the measurement of brain activity using a variety of techniques, each of which provides information about different aspects of neural function. Electroencephalography measures the electrical activity of large populations of neurons by recording voltage fluctuations at the surface of the scalp, and it provides high temporal resolution but limited spatial resolution. Functional magnetic resonance imaging measures changes in blood flow and oxygenation in the brain, which are correlated with neural activity, and it provides better spatial resolution than electroencephalography, but poorer temporal resolution. Other techniques, such as positron emission tomography, magnetoencephalography, and optogenetics, provide additional ways of measuring and manipulating brain activity, and each has its own strengths and limitations. By combining data from these different techniques, scientists can build more complete pictures of which brain regions are active during different tasks or mental states, and how activity in different regions is coordinated. However, moving from these measurements of brain activity to a complete understanding of how subjective experience arises from neural processes requires not only more detailed and comprehensive data, but also theoretical frameworks that can link the physical processes in the brain to the qualitative aspects of consciousness. Some researchers focus on identifying neural correlates of consciousness, which are the specific patterns of brain activity that are consistently associated with particular conscious states, while others work on developing mathematical or computational models that might explain how conscious experience emerges from the interactions of many neurons. These approaches are complementary and both contribute to the gradual development of a more complete scientific account of consciousness. The complexity of the brain as a network of billions of neurons, each with thousands of connections, means that understanding brain function requires studying the system at multiple levels of organization, from the molecular mechanisms that govern the release and detection of neurotransmitters to the properties of individual neurons and the patterns of electrical activity they generate, to the organization of neurons into circuits and networks that process specific types of information to the large-scale patterns of activity that involve coordination across multiple brain regions. Each of these levels of organization involves different types of measurements and different types of models, and linking them together into a unified understanding of brain function is a major challenge. The human brain also exhibits a great deal of variability between individuals, and it changes over time in response to experience, injury, and aging, which adds further complexity to the task of developing general principles that apply across different brains and different conditions. Despite these challenges, progress in neuroscience has been substantial, with many aspects of sensory processing, motor control, learning, memory, and other cognitive functions now understood in considerable detail. The remaining gaps in understanding tend to involve phenomena that are particularly complex, that involve many interacting brain regions, or that are difficult to study experimentally because they occur on very fast time scales or involve very small populations of neurons. Continued progress in brain research depends on the development of new technologies for measuring and manipulating neural activity, as well as on advances in computational methods for analyzing large data sets and for simulating the behavior of neural networks. The treatment of time as a dimension in the framework of relativity means that time and space are not separate and independent, but rather are aspects of a four-dimensional structure called spacetime. In special relativity, which applies to observers moving at constant velocities relative to each other, time intervals and spatial distances can differ between observers depending on their relative motion, but all observers agree on the spacetime interval, which is a combination of time and space that remains invariant. In general relativity, which includes the effects of gravity, the curvature of spacetime is determined by the distribution of mass and energy, and the paths that objects follow through spacetime, which appear to us as motion through space over time, are determined by this curvature. The predictions of general relativity have been confirmed through many observations, including the precession of Mercury's orbit, the bending of light by the Sun, the time dilation experienced by clocks in strong gravitational fields or moving at high speeds, and the detection of gravitational waves from merging black holes and neutron stars. These observations show that the relativistic treatment of time and space accurately describes the behavior of matter and energy under a wide range of conditions. However, relativity does not explain why time has the particular properties it does, such as why there is a distinction between past and future, or why time appears to flow in one direction. These questions are related to the behavior of entropy and to the statistical properties of large systems, and they are subjects of ongoing research in thermodynamics and in the foundations of physics. The increase of entropy in closed systems, as described by the second law of thermodynamics, provides a statistical basis for understanding the directionality of time in the sense that processes tend to evolve from states of lower entropy to states of higher entropy, and this gives a direction to time that is consistent with our everyday experience of cause and effect. Entropy is a measure of the number of microscopic configurations that are consistent with a given macroscopic state, and for systems with many particles, the number of high-entropy states is vastly larger than the number of low-entropy states. As a result, a system that starts in a low-entropy state is overwhelmingly likely to evolve toward higher entropy simply because there are so many more high-entropy states available. This statistical tendency does not require any fundamental asymmetry in the laws of physics themselves, as the microscopic laws that govern the motion of individual particles are generally time-symmetric, meaning that they work the same way forwards and backwards in time. The arrow of time, which is the observation that macroscopic processes have a preferred direction, emerges from the statistical behavior of large systems rather than from a fundamental asymmetry in the laws of physics. Understanding how this statistical arrow of time is related to other aspects of time, such as the apparent flow of time in conscious experience or the directionality of causation, is an area where physics, thermodynamics, and potentially neuroscience intersect, and it remains a topic of active theoretical investigation. The development of a quantum theory of gravity would require understanding how spacetime behaves at extremely small scales, comparable to the Planck length, which is approximately 1.6 times 10 to the minus 35 meters, and at extremely high energies, comparable to the Planck energy. At these scales, quantum fluctuations in the structure of spacetime are expected to become significant, and the smooth geometry described by general relativity is thought to break down and be replaced by a more fundamental quantum description. Several approaches to quantum gravity have been proposed, including string theory, loop quantum gravity, and others, each of which attempts to provide a mathematical framework that can describe both gravity and quantum mechanics in a unified way. String theory proposes that the fundamental constituents of the universe are not point particles, but rather one-dimensional objects called strings, and that the different particles we observe correspond to different vibrational modes of these strings. In string theory, gravity arises naturally from the vibrational modes of strings, and the theory also predicts the existence of additional spatial dimensions beyond the three that we observe directly. Loop quantum gravity, on the other hand, attempts to quantize spacetime itself, treating it as a network of discrete loops, or quanta of space, rather than as a smooth continuum. Both of these approaches are mathematically complex and have not yet been confirmed through experimental observation, in part because the energy scales and length scales, where quantum gravitational effects are expected to be significant, are far beyond what can currently be probed with particle accelerators or other experimental apparatus. Testing these theories requires finding observable consequences that could be measured, such as subtle effects on the propagation of light from distant astrophysical sources, or signatures in the cosmic microwave background radiation, and scientists are working to identify such predictions and to develop experiments that might detect them. The study of the early universe provides another context in which quantum gravitational effects might have been important, as the universe is thought to have been extremely hot and dense in the moments immediately following the Big Bang, and at some point in this very early period, the energy density would have been high enough that quantum effects on the structure of spacetime would have been significant. Understanding this earliest phase of the universe's history requires a theory that can describe both the quantum behavior of matter and energy and the dynamical behavior of spacetime, which is what a theory of quantum gravity would provide. Some models of the early universe, such as inflationary models, propose that there was a brief period of extremely rapid expansion driven by a scalar field, and this expansion could have smoothed out any irregularities in the initial state of the universe and generated the small density fluctuations that later grew into galaxies and large-scale structures. These models are successful in explaining many observed features of the universe, such as its large-scale homogeneity and the pattern of fluctuations in the cosmic microwave background, but they do not provide a complete explanation of what happened at the very earliest times before inflation began, or of what might have triggered inflation. Addressing these questions requires theoretical frameworks that can go beyond the classical description of spacetime, and that can incorporate quantum effects, and this is one of the motivations for developing a quantum theory of gravity. The question of what, if anything, existed before the Big Bang is difficult to address scientifically because the concept of time itself is tied to the structure of spacetime, and if spacetime began with the Big Bang, then it may not be meaningful to ask what happened before it in the usual sense of temporal sequence. Some cosmological models propose that the Big Bang was not the absolute beginning of everything, but rather a transition from some previous state, such as a collapsing phase of a cyclic universe, or a quantum fluctuation in a larger multiverse, or some other pre-existing structure. These models are speculative in the sense that they go beyond what can currently be observed directly, and they often make predictions that are difficult to test with available technology. However, they represent attempts to extend the scientific framework to include questions about the ultimate origin of the universe, and they are based on the same principles of observation, measurement, and mathematical consistency that underlie other areas of science. Whether these questions can ultimately be answered through scientific methods, or whether they reach a point where observation and measurement become impossible in principle, is itself a question that scientists continue to explore. The formation of organic molecules on the early Earth is thought to have involved a variety of chemical processes driven by energy from sources such as ultraviolet radiation from the sun, electrical discharges from lightning, and heat from volcanic activity and hydrothermal vents. Laboratory experiments have shown that amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, can form when mixtures of simple gases such as methane, ammonia, water vapor, and hydrogen are subjected to electrical discharges or other forms of energy input. Although the exact composition of the early Earth's atmosphere is still a subject of research and may have been different from the mixtures used in some early experiments, other experiments have demonstrated that nucleotides, which are the building blocks of ribonucleic acid and deoxyribonucleic acid, can also form under plausible prebiotic conditions, although the pathways for their synthesis are more complex and involve multiple steps. Once organic molecules are formed, the next challenge is to understand how they could have become concentrated and organized into structures capable of self-replication and metabolism, which are key characteristics of living systems. Various environments have been proposed as possible sites for the origin of life, including shallow ponds or tidal pools, where repeated cycles of evaporation and wetting could have concentrated organic molecules, mineral surfaces, such as clay particles, that could have provided templates for the organization of molecules, and hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, where gradients of temperature and chemical composition could have driven chemical reactions. Each of these scenarios has some experimental support and some theoretical motivation, but demonstrating a complete pathway from simple molecules to self-replicating systems remains a major challenge in the study of the origin of life. The RNA world hypothesis is based on the observation that ribonucleic acid molecules can perform both informational and catalytic functions, which makes them plausible candidates for early life forms that predated the more specialized division of labor between deoxyribonucleic acid, which stores genetic information, and proteins, which perform most catalytic functions in modern cells. Some ribonucleic acid molecules, known as ribozymes, can catalyze chemical reactions, including reactions involved in their own synthesis, and this dual functionality suggests that a system based on ribonucleic acid could have been capable of both storing information and carrying out the chemical transformations necessary for metabolism and replication. However, synthesizing ribonucleic acid from simpler precursors under prebiotic conditions has proven to be difficult, and many steps in the proposed pathways require specific conditions or catalysts that may or may not have been available on the early Earth. Additionally, ribonucleic acid molecules are relatively unstable and can degrade readily in the presence of water or heat, which raises questions about how they could have persisted long enough to evolve into more complex systems. Despite these challenges, the RNA world hypothesis remains an active area of research, and scientists continue to explore both the chemical feasibility of ribonucleic acid synthesis under prebiotic conditions and the possibility of alternative informational molecules that might have played similar roles in early life. The transition from simple self-replicating molecules to the first cellular life forms required the development of compartments or membranes that could separate the interior of a cell from the external environment, allowing for the concentration of molecules and the regulation of chemical reactions. Lipid molecules, which have hydrophobic and hydrophilic parts, can spontaneously form bilayer membranes in water, and these membranes can encapsulate other molecules, creating primitive cell-like structures known as vesicles or protocells. Experiments have shown that such vesicles can grow, divide, and even compete with each other for resources under certain conditions, which suggests that some of the properties associated with living cells could have emerged from relatively simple chemical systems. However, integrating self-replicating molecules, such as ribonucleic acid, with membrane-bound compartments, and developing mechanisms for the coordinated replication of both the genetic material and the membrane are steps that are not yet fully understood and that remain subjects of ongoing experimental and theoretical work. The study of the origin of life is inherently difficult because it attempts to reconstruct events that occurred billions of years ago, and for which there is little direct geological or fossil evidence. But it proceeds through a combination of laboratory experiments that test specific hypotheses about chemical pathways and conditions, observations of the properties of modern cells and molecules that might reflect ancient characteristics, and theoretical modeling that explores the kinds of systems that could have been stable and capable of evolution. The prediction of weather beyond a few days into the future is limited by the chaotic nature of atmospheric dynamics, which means that small uncertainties in the initial conditions can grow exponentially over time, leading to large uncertainties in the predicted state of the atmosphere. Weather forecasts are generated using numerical models that solve the equations governing the motion of air, the transfer of heat and moisture, and other physical processes, but these models require accurate initial conditions, which are obtained from observations of temperature, pressure, humidity, wind speed, and other variables at many locations around the world. Despite the extensive network of weather stations, satellites, and other observing systems, there are always some gaps in the data, and some variables cannot be measured with perfect accuracy. These uncertainties in the initial conditions, combined with the sensitivity of the atmosphere to small changes, mean that forecasts become less reliable as they extend further into the future. For timescales of a few hours to a few days, modern weather forecasts are generally quite accurate, but beyond about a week, to 10 days. The chaotic nature of the atmosphere makes detailed forecasts unreliable. Longer-term predictions, such as seasonal or climate forecasts, are possible to some extent because they focus on average conditions or statistical properties rather than on specific day-to-day weather, and because some factors, such as the temperature of the ocean surface, change more slowly and can influence average weather patterns over longer periods. However, even these longer-term forecasts have limits to their accuracy, and they are typically expressed in terms of probabilities or ranges rather than as specific predictions. The prediction of earthquakes faces different challenges than weather prediction because while the underlying physical processes are reasonably well understood, the relevant variables are much more difficult to measure, and the behavior of rock under stress involves complex processes at many scales. Earthquakes occur when stress that has accumulated along a fault exceeds the strength of the rock, causing the fault to slip suddenly. The accumulation of stress is driven by the slow motion of tectonic plates, which can be measured using GPS and other geodetic techniques, and scientists can identify faults and regions where stress is building up. However, predicting when a particular fault will rupture requires knowing not only the total amount of stress, but also the detailed properties of the rock along the fault, including the presence of any weak spots or irregularities that might initiate a rupture, and the distribution of friction and other mechanical properties. These properties are difficult to measure directly, especially at the depths where most earthquakes occur, which are typically several kilometers to tens of kilometers below the surface. Additionally, the process of fault rupture involves interactions across many scales, from the microscopic structure of mineral grains to the macroscopic behavior of large fault segments, and these interactions can be highly nonlinear and sensitive to small variations in conditions. As a result, while scientists can make probabilistic assessments of earthquake hazard, estimating the likelihood that an earthquake of a certain magnitude will occur in a given region over a certain time period, predicting the exact time, location, and magnitude of a specific earthquake remains beyond current capabilities. The study of turbulent flow in fluids is another area where prediction is difficult, despite a good understanding of the basic equations that govern fluid motion. The Navier-Stokes equations describe how the velocity, pressure, and density of a fluid change in response to forces, and they are used to model everything from the flow of air over an aircraft wing to the circulation of blood in arteries. However, turbulent flow, which occurs when a fluid moves at high speeds or when there are complex boundary conditions, involves fluctuations in velocity and pressure at many different scales, from large eddies down to very small swirls, and these fluctuations interact with each other in complex ways. Solving the Navier-Stokes equations for turbulent flow requires very fine spatial and temporal resolution, which makes the computational cost of simulating turbulence very high. Even with modern supercomputers, detailed simulations of turbulent flow are possible only for relatively simple geometries and for limited time periods. For practical applications, engineers and scientists often use simplified models that capture some features of turbulence without resolving all the details, but these models rely on empirical parameters that must be adjusted based on experiments, and they do not provide a complete predictive capability. Understanding turbulence at a fundamental level and developing better methods for predicting turbulent flow remains an active area of research in fluid dynamics. The role of computer simulations in modern science is to provide a way of testing theories and exploring scenarios that would be difficult or impossible to study through direct observation or experiment, and simulations have become an essential tool in fields ranging from climate science to astrophysics to molecular biology. A simulation involves creating a mathematical model of a system, specifying the initial conditions and the rules that govern how the system evolves, and then using a computer to calculate the state of the system at successive times. The accuracy of a simulation depends on the accuracy of the mathematical model, the precision with which the initial conditions are known, and the computational resources available to perform the calculations. In some cases, simulations can make detailed and accurate predictions that can be compared directly with observations, providing a test of the underlying theory. In other cases, simulations are used to explore the range of possible behaviors that a system might exhibit, or to identify patterns and relationships that might not be obvious from the equations alone. Simulations are particularly useful for studying systems that evolve over very long time scales, such as the formation of galaxies or the evolution of climate, or for systems that involve processes at very small scales, such as the folding of proteins or the behavior of materials at the atomic level. However, simulations have limitations, and they are only as good as the models and data that go into them, and they must be validated against observations whenever possible to ensure that they are providing reliable results. The development of new observational techniques continues to expand the range of phenomena that scientists can study, and many recent advances in science have been driven by improvements in the ability to measure things with greater precision at smaller scales or across larger regions of space. Advances in detector technology have made it possible to detect individual photons, to measure the positions and velocities of particles with great accuracy, and to observe phenomena that occur on timescales of femtoseconds or less. Advances in imaging technology have made it possible to see structures within cells, to map the distribution of matter in the universe, and to observe the surfaces of distant planets and moons. Advances in data analysis and machine learning have made it possible to process the vast amounts of data generated by modern instruments to identify patterns and signals that might be buried in noise, and to make connections between different data sets that might reveal new insights. These technological developments are not separate from the scientific process, but rather are integral to it as they determine what questions can be asked and what phenomena can be studied. The continued development of new technologies is essential for the progress of science, and many of the unanswered questions in current science will likely require new instruments or new methods of analysis in order to be addressed. The process of scientific investigation involves not only making observations and measurements, but also developing theories that can explain those observations and that can make predictions about what will be observed under new conditions. A scientific theory is not simply a guess or a speculation, but rather a well-tested explanation that is supported by a substantial body of evidence and that has been subjected to rigorous testing through experiment and observation. Theories are constructed using mathematical language, which allows for precise and unambiguous statements about how variables are related and how systems are expected to behave. The use of mathematics in science also allows for the derivation of predictions that might not be immediately obvious from qualitative reasoning, and it provides a framework for comparing different theories and for determining which one is most consistent with the available data. When a theory makes predictions that are subsequently confirmed by observation, confidence in the theory increases, and when a theory makes predictions that are contradicted by observation, the theory must be modified or replaced. This process of testing and refinement is ongoing, and it applies to all areas of science, from well-established theories such as general relativity and quantum mechanics to newer and less certain ideas about dark matter, dark energy, or the origin of life. The distinction between a theory and a hypothesis is important in understanding how scientific knowledge is structured and how it develops over time. A hypothesis is a proposed explanation for a specific phenomenon or a specific set of observations, and it is typically formulated in a way that can be tested through experiment or further observation. A theory, on the other hand, is a broader framework that explains a wide range of phenomena and that has been supported by extensive evidence. In some cases, a hypothesis that is well tested and well supported may eventually become part of a larger theory, or it may lead to the development of a new theory if it reveals patterns or principles that extend beyond the original observations. The use of the word theory in everyday language sometimes implies uncertainty or speculation, but in science, a theory represents a high level of confidence and explanatory power, and theories are the best descriptions available of how the natural world works. Even well-established theories can be refined or extended as new observations are made, but this process of refinement is a sign of the strength of the scientific method rather than a weakness, as it shows that science is responsive to new evidence and is capable of improving its explanations over time. The concept of falsifiability, which is the idea that a scientific claim must make predictions that could in principle be shown to be false by observation or experiment, is an important criterion for distinguishing scientific hypotheses from non-scientific ones. A hypothesis that cannot be tested either because it makes no specific predictions or because the predictions cannot be observed under any feasible conditions is not considered a scientific hypothesis, even if it might be interesting or plausible in other ways. Falsifiability does not mean that a hypothesis must be false, but rather that there must be some possible observation that would show it to be false if that observation were made. This criterion helps to ensure that scientific claims are grounded in empirical evidence and that they can be subjected to rigorous testing. It also means that scientific knowledge is always provisional in the sense that any claim could in principle be revised or rejected if new evidence comes to light, but this provisional nature does not imply that all scientific knowledge is equally uncertain, as some claims are supported by vast amounts of consistent evidence and are extremely unlikely to be overturned. The accumulation of evidence over time is what gives scientific knowledge its reliability, and the strength of a scientific conclusion depends not on any single observation or experiment, but on the consistency and reproducibility of results across many different studies and many different contexts. When multiple independent researchers using different methods and different instruments arrive at the same conclusion, confidence in that conclusion increases substantially. When a prediction made by a theory is confirmed by observations made in different parts of the world or at different times, or using different techniques, this convergence of evidence strengthens the theory. Conversely, when different studies produce inconsistent results, this indicates that there may be something not yet understood about the phenomenon, or that there are sources of error or variability that need to be identified and controlled. The process of resolving such inconsistencies through further observation, more careful experimentation, and critical evaluation of methods and assumptions is a central part of the scientific process, and it leads to more robust and reliable knowledge. The social and collaborative nature of science is also an important aspect of how scientific knowledge develops, as individual scientists work within communities of researchers who share data, critique each other's work, and build on each other's ideas. The publication of research results in scientific journals, the presentation of findings at conferences, and the open discussion of methods and interpretations all contribute to the process by which scientific knowledge is tested and refined. Peer review, in which experts in a field evaluate research before it is published, helps to ensure that studies meet certain standards of quality and rigor, although it is not a perfect process and does not guarantee that published results are correct. Replication, in which other researchers attempt to repeat an experiment or observation to see if they obtain the same results, is another important mechanism for validating scientific claims, and findings that cannot be replicated are generally treated with skepticism until the reasons for the lack of replication are understood. The scientific community, as a whole, acts as a filter, gradually identifying which claims are well supported and which are questionable or incorrect, and this collective process is more reliable than any individual researcher or study could be on its own. The role of uncertainty in science is often misunderstood, as uncertainty is sometimes taken to mean that scientists do not know anything or that scientific conclusions are arbitrary. But in fact, uncertainty is a normal and expected part of any measurement or inference, and scientists are trained to quantify and communicate uncertainty in their results. Measurements are never perfectly precise, and there are always sources of error, whether from limitations of the instruments, from variability in the system being measured, or from simplifications or assumptions in the models being used. Scientists express uncertainty using statistical methods such as confidence intervals or error bars, which indicate the range within which the true value is likely to lie based on the available data and the known sources of variability. Understanding and communicating uncertainty allows for more honest and accurate assessments of what is known and what remains uncertain, and it helps to prevent overconfidence in conclusions that are based on limited data or on models that involve significant assumptions. The distinction between precision and accuracy is also relevant to understanding scientific measurements, as precision refers to how closely repeated measurements agree with each other, while accuracy refers to how closely the measurements agree with the true value. A measurement can be precise, but not accurate, if there is a systematic error that causes all the measurements to be shifted away from the true value. And a measurement can be accurate on average, but not very precise, if there is a large amount of random variability. Improving both precision and accuracy requires careful attention to sources of error, calibration of instruments, and the use of appropriate methods for data collection and analysis. In many areas of science, progress depends on incremental improvements in measurement precision, which allow for the detection of small effects or the resolution of subtle differences that were previously obscured by measurement noise. The integration of different fields of science is increasingly important for addressing complex questions that span multiple disciplines, such as understanding climate change, which requires knowledge of atmospheric physics, oceanography, biology, chemistry, and earth science, or understanding human health, which involves genetics, molecular biology, physiology, psychology, and environmental science. Interdisciplinary research brings together expertise from different areas and uses methods and concepts from multiple fields to tackle problems that cannot be fully addressed from a single disciplinary perspective. This kind of research can be challenging because it requires researchers to communicate across disciplinary boundaries, to integrate different types of data and different theoretical frameworks, and to develop new methods that can bridge different scales or different levels of organization. However, it also has the potential to lead to new insights and to reveal connections that might not be apparent when each discipline is considered in isolation. The pace of scientific progress varies across different fields and different topics, depending on factors such as the availability of funding, the development of necessary technologies, the complexity of the phenomena being studied, and the number of researchers working in the area. Some areas of science advance rapidly because they are well funded, because they have access to powerful tools, or because the problems are relatively straightforward and can be broken down into manageable pieces. Other areas advance more slowly because the phenomena are more complex, because the necessary tools have not yet been developed, or because the questions are difficult to formulate in ways that can be tested experimentally. The history of science shows that progress is not always linear, and that there can be periods of rapid advance when new discoveries or new methods open up new areas of investigation, as well as periods of slower progress when researchers are working to consolidate and refine existing knowledge. Understanding the factors that influence the pace of progress can help to set realistic expectations for how quickly particular questions might be answered, and can inform decisions about where to focus research efforts and resources. The ethical dimensions of scientific research, including issues related to the treatment of human and animal subjects, the potential consequences of research findings, and the responsibilities of scientists to communicate their results accurately and honestly, are also important aspects of the scientific enterprise. Scientists are expected to adhere to ethical guidelines that protect the welfare of research participants, that ensure the integrity of the research process, and that promote the responsible use of scientific knowledge. These guidelines are established and enforced by professional societies, research institutions, and regulatory agencies, and they reflect a recognition that scientific research can have significant impacts on individuals and on society, and that these impacts need to be carefully considered and managed. Ethical considerations can influence what kinds of research are conducted, how research is designed and carried out, and how results are communicated and applied, and they are an integral part of responsible scientific practice. The communication of scientific findings to the public is another important aspect of science, as the results of research can inform policy decisions, influence public understanding of important issues, and contribute to educational efforts. Scientists have a responsibility to communicate their findings accurately, to acknowledge uncertainties and limitations, and to avoid overstating the implications of their work. Effective science communication requires translating technical language and complex concepts into forms that are accessible to non-specialist audiences, while still conveying the essential content and the appropriate level of confidence in the conclusions. This can be challenging, especially when dealing with topics that are politically contentious or that have significant implications for people's lives, and it requires a careful balance between simplifying for clarity and maintaining accuracy and nuance. The role of science journalists, educators, and communicators is to help bridge the gap between the scientific community and the public, and to provide context and interpretation that can help people understand what scientific findings mean and how they might be relevant to their own concerns and decisions. The relationship between science and technology is a close one, as advances in science often lead to new technologies, and new technologies often enable new scientific discoveries. Basic scientific research, which is driven primarily by curiosity and by the desire to understand how the natural world works, can sometimes lead to applications that were not anticipated at the time the research was conducted. Many of the technologies that are now part of everyday life, from computers to medical imaging to materials with specific properties, have their origins in basic scientific research. Applied research, which is directed towards solving specific practical problems or developing new products or processes, draws on scientific knowledge and methods, and it often requires the same kinds of careful observation, experimentation, and analysis that are used in basic research. The distinction between basic and applied research is not always sharp, and many research projects have elements of both, contributing to fundamental understanding while also addressing practical needs. The funding of scientific research is an important factor that shapes what kinds of research are conducted and how quickly different fields advance. Decisions about funding priorities reflect a combination of scientific considerations, such as the promise of particular lines of investigation or the availability of new techniques, and societal considerations, such as the potential for addressing health problems, environmental challenges, or economic needs. Government agencies, private foundations, and industry all play roles in funding scientific research, and the balance between different sources of funding can influence the direction of research and the kinds of questions that are pursued. Public investment in science is motivated in part by the expectation that scientific research will lead to practical benefits, but it also reflects a recognition that expanding human knowledge and understanding has value in its own right, and that many of the most important scientific discoveries cannot be planned or predicted in advance. The global nature of science is another defining characteristic of the modern scientific enterprise, as researchers around the world collaborate on projects, share data and methods, and contribute to the collective effort to understand the natural world. International collaborations are especially important for large-scale projects such as particle physics experiments that require expensive facilities, climate monitoring networks that span the globe, or genomic studies that involve samples from many different populations. The free exchange of scientific information across national borders is facilitated by international journals, conferences, and electronic communication, and it helps to ensure that scientific knowledge is developed and tested by a diverse community of researchers with different perspectives and expertise. However, there are also challenges associated with global science, including differences in resources and infrastructure between countries, language barriers, and questions about how to ensure that the benefits of scientific research are shared equitably. The reproducibility of scientific results, which means that other researchers should be able to repeat an experiment or observation and obtain the same result, is a cornerstone of the scientific method, and it provides a way of checking that findings are reliable and not due to errors, biases, or chance fluctuations. However, there have been concerns in recent years about the reproducibility of results in some areas of science, with studies showing that attempts to replicate certain published findings sometimes do not succeed. The reasons for failures to replicate can vary, and they may include differences in methods or materials between the original study and the replication attempt, insufficient detail in the reporting of methods, or genuine variability in the phenomena being studied. Addressing reproducibility issues requires improvements in how research is conducted and reported, including better documentation of methods, more rigorous statistical analysis, pre-registration of study designs to prevent selective reporting of results, and more systematic efforts to replicate important findings. The scientific community is working to address these challenges and to strengthen the reliability of scientific research. The use of models in science is widespread and essential, as models provide simplified representations of complex systems that can be used to make predictions, to test hypotheses, and to explore scenarios that would be difficult or impossible to study directly. Models can be mathematical, consisting of equations that describe how different variables are related, or they can be computational, using computer programs to simulate the behavior of a system over time. Models can also be physical, such as scale models of structures or organisms, or conceptual, providing a framework for thinking about how a system is organized or how it functions. The value of a model depends on how well it captures the essential features of the system it represents, and on how useful it is for the purposes for which it is intended. all models involve simplifications and assumptions, and no model is a perfect representation of reality. But a good model is one that is accurate enough for its intended purpose and that provides insights that would not be readily apparent from direct observation alone. The process of developing and refining models is iterative, with models being tested against data adjusted based on discrepancies, and sometimes replaced entirely when new observations or new theoretical insights reveal their limitations. The interplay between theory and observation is central to the scientific process, as theories guide what observations are made and how they are interpreted, while observations provide the evidence that theories must explain and the tests that determine whether theories are correct. This interplay means that science is not simply a matter of collecting facts, but rather involves a continuous process of forming and testing ideas, with each cycle of observation and theorizing leading to deeper and more refined understanding. In some cases, observations lead directly to the formation of new theories, when patterns are noticed that existing theories cannot explain. While in other cases, theories predict phenomena that have not yet been observed, and observations are then made to test those predictions. The history of science provides many examples of both of these paths, and the most successful scientific theories are those that not only explain existing observations, but also make accurate predictions about new phenomena that are subsequently confirmed. The concept of emergence, which refers to the appearance of properties or behaviors at higher levels of organization that are not present or not obvious at lower levels, is relevant to understanding many complex systems in science. From the properties of materials that emerge from the interactions of atoms and molecules, to the behavior of ecosystems that emerges from the interactions of individual organisms, to the properties of consciousness that emerge from the interactions of neurons in the brain. Emergence does not imply that higher-level properties are disconnected from or independent of lower-level processes, but rather that they arise from those processes in ways that may not be immediately predictable from knowledge of the components alone. Understanding emergent properties requires studying systems at multiple levels and developing models that can connect the behavior of components to the behavior of the whole. The study of emergence is an active area of research in fields such as condensed matter physics, systems biology, and cognitive science, and it represents one of the ways in which science addresses the complexity of the natural world. The limitations of human perception and cognition also play a role in shaping scientific practice, as scientists must use instruments and methods to extend their senses beyond what can be directly perceived. And they must use formal reasoning and mathematical analysis to make inferences that go beyond what can be intuitively grasped. The reliance on instruments and on formal methods helps to overcome the biases and limitations of human perception. But it also means that scientific knowledge is mediated by tools and theories, and that scientists must always be aware of the assumptions and approximations that are built into their methods. Critical thinking and skepticism are essential components of scientific practice, as they help to ensure that conclusions are based on solid evidence and sound reasoning, and that claims are subjected to rigorous scrutiny before they are accepted. The long-term sustainability of scientific research depends on maintaining institutions and practices that support the training of new scientists, the infrastructure needed for research, and the cultural values that promote curiosity, openness, and intellectual honesty. Science education plays a crucial role in preparing the next generation of researchers and in fostering a scientifically literate public that can understand and engage with scientific issues. Research infrastructure, including laboratories, observatories, data repositories, and computational facilities, provides the tools and resources that scientists need to conduct their work. The cultural values of science, including the commitment to evidence-based reasoning, the willingness to change one's mind in the face of new evidence, and the recognition that knowledge is always provisional and subject to revision, are essential for maintaining the integrity and effectiveness of the scientific enterprise. These values are not always easy to uphold, especially in the face of political pressures, economic interests, or ideological commitments. But they are fundamental to the success of science as a way of understanding the world. The gradual nature of scientific progress means that most advances in science are incremental, building on previous work and adding small pieces to the overall picture rather than involving sudden breakthroughs or revolutionary discoveries. While there are certainly moments in the history of science when new ideas or new observations lead to major shifts in understanding, these moments are relatively rare, and they are typically built on a foundation of extensive prior work. The day-to-day work of science involves making careful measurements, analyzing data, testing hypotheses, and gradually refining models and theories. And this work is essential, even though it may not be dramatic or newsworthy. The cumulative effect of many small advances is what drives the overall progress of science, and recognizing the value of this incremental work is important for maintaining realistic expectations about the pace and nature of scientific discovery. And now, as everything gently fades into stillness, as the universe breathes in quiet harmony, there is nowhere you need to go, nothing more to seek, nothing to hold. This is enough. You are enough. Let the silence cradle you. Let the darkness feel safe and soft. Let your thoughts dissolve like stardust. May your body sink into rest. May your breath become slow and easy. May your dreams open gentle doors to peace. As the cosmos continues its endless motion, you may drift effortlessly into sleep. And when morning comes, may you rise, calm, renewed, and light, carrying a quiet echo of the infinite. Good night, and rest among the stars.